Nothing says fall quite like Tempranillo. And this one right here is one of the best kept secrets under the radar Tempranillos from Rioja in Spain that I have discovered in the past 10 years. This is the Terroir de Zinio 2017 Rioja. This is a Reserva, which we'll talk about what that means because in Spain, and specifically in Rioja, it actually does mean something, unlike, some other places. This is going to be 100% Tempranillo, the primary dominant grape, not only in Spain, but of course in the region of Rioja. We're in the northern part of Spain, just south of France. And we also have another wine in this shipment that's also from Rioja, but it's a white wine. Woo! My friends, if Tempranillo is new to you, well, this is a really good one to start with. And if it's not new for you, this is one that you're going to be buying on repeat because this is one of the greatest finds of Tempranillo that I've discovered in a long time. Like I said, this is a Reserva, which means it is aged for at least 3 years, one of them being oak. And in Spain, we're talking a lot of the time about aging in American oak. This is something that has been commonplace in Spain for many, many years. So you're not going to see a lot of French oak there. You're going to see American oak influence on these wines, which is going to give you something to the effect of a little bit of coconut, a little bit of dill. Of course, it's still going to give you all those great baking spices, that vanilla, but it's going to give you something a little different, a little more unique. You might be familiar with some other famous wines that are aged in American oak, notably Silver Oak in Napa Valley, as well as Ridge. Those are two wines outside of Spain that we have come to associate with the use of American oak. There isn't one that's better than the other. I think a lot of people talk about the fact that, the French is the classic oak, but American oak can have a really, really impressive, delicious effect on a wine as well. So as you smell this wine, you should be getting a little bit of that coconut. You should be getting a little bit of that dill, but more importantly, you should be getting a lot of fruit. Tempranillo, let's talk about this grape because I think it's a grape that's a really fun grape that not a lot of people immediately go to, but they definitely should because it gives you a little bit of everything. I think it's one of the most versatile grapes. I think it's one of the most interesting grapes. And of course, when we're talking about aging, it's a wine that can age for a very long time and does so in a very interesting way. Tempranillo for me always gives you a little bit of that Pinot characteristic, a lot of that cherry, but a lot of spice and tobacco and leather. So if you love leaning into those more savory tones, something that feels like campfire, something that feels kind of woodsy, but you're not going to lose the fruit like you would in Bordeaux, Tempranillo, especially coming from Spain, is a really, really great route to go. And as they age, they continue evolving in that direction. You're going to get more and more of that spice, more and more of that tobacco. And because we're talking about a warm region, you're getting really nice, lush, lush fruit. So on the nose, you should be getting all of those things. But if you're not getting it immediately, give this wine a little time to open up. I don't think that you need to decant this by any means, but definitely put it in a glass that's more similar to a Burgundy glass than a Bordeaux glass. I like a little bit more of a wide goblet for a wine like this, just because the aromatics are so, so interesting. Now on the palate, you feel those tannins? This is where Pinot and Tempranillo divide. They're not super grippy tannins like you would find something like Nebbiolo. They're kind of sandy and fine right in the middle, but they're there, right? You feel them on your tongue. They're a little bit grippy and they give the wine structure because without it, this would just be a really big, spicy fruit bomb. It would be a little closer to something like the Zinfandel that we're going to have from our other episode about Sonoma. I love this wine because I think, it sits right in that perfect medium to full bodied camp, which is where I want to be in the fall season. You should be getting all of those great red fruits. I don't even dip into blue. I don't even tiptoe into the purple side of things. This is red, red fruit. It's sage, it's tobacco, it's that woodsy campfire thing. It's all of those spices. It's all of the things that we sort of come to associate with fall. And for me, there is like a little bit of a funkiness to this wine in like the best way possible, right? A little bit of that something kind of umami under there, a little mushroom or something, right? One thing I want to call attention to that I think is important because some people look at the back label and go, whoa, 15% alcohol. That's really high. You know, I'd say 15% is actually pretty moderate for a region like this because it is very hot. The sugars are going to accumulate. And of course, when those get fermented, they're going to be converted into alcohol. So 15% is pretty normal. The important thing that I want you to know is that it is balanced. Alcohol, when it's in balance, like it is here, when it's harnessed and it's restrained and it's bound by all of the great winemaking that's happening around it, you don't even notice it when you're drinking it. But you should probably pay attention to it, you know, over the course of the long haul, because we're not talking about an 11, 12% wine here. We're talking about 15. So it does have a little oomph to it. And it is accounting for some of the body on this wine. Don't forget that alcohol is going to give you more viscosity in a wine. It's going to lend itself to the structure and the body of that wine. That's one of the great things that alcohol does. Couple really fun things about this wine. As I said, this is coming from the region of Rioja, which is in the northern part of Spain, just south of France. And this is specifically from one of the 3 subzones. This is from Rioja Alta. You'll see that on the back of the label here, just underneath of where it says Rioja, right here. And that's important because Rioja Alta is typically one of the warmer regions, but it's also the highest region. This is sitting at 1,600 feet of elevation. So this is sitting really, really nice and high. So you're getting that really nice exposure to sunlight without it being too intense. One of the other really cool things about this wine is that this is coming from older vines. These are 70-year-old bush trained vines, which basically means if you were to look at the vineyard, you wouldn't see those like perfect rows like you would in places like Napa Valley and Bordeaux. They're going to be a little bit more sprawling, a little bit more wily. And this is really normal for older vines. These are 70 years old. They produce super tiny berries, which is accounting for all of that great concentration that you're getting in this wine. The other really cool thing about this winery that I think is really special is, of course, we're seeing more and more women in the wine industry, which is great. Hello, I'm here. But 80% of this winery is comprised of females, which I think is a really special thing. In terms of how to enjoy this wine at home, which is the important part, right? You should be uncorking this and enjoying this. In terms of how to enjoy it, like I said, a burgundy glass is great for this. Get it to cellar temperature. As always, you don't want to serve this wine too warm because that's going to make those alcohols poke out even more. So make sure that you're getting this at about 55 to 60 degrees. That's about 15 to 20 minutes in your fridge if you're not storing it in a wine fridge or in a cellar at temperature. 20 minutes in the fridge. So basically, if you're cooking your steak and you're going to do like a 6 to 7 minute sear and then you're going to let it rest, right as you're about to put that steak on, put your wine in the fridge. Maybe open it as well, you know, just get a little bit of air going. But 20 minutes in the fridge is what you need. And of course, I just alluded to steak. Steak is going to be your best bet with a wine like this. There's tannin, there's acidity, and there's structure here. So it's going to want to go with the protein. I wouldn't be mad at this alone. And of course, when we're talking about Spain or any other country for that matter, I'm always thinking about what grows together goes together. I love Spanish cheeses with this wine. I love charred vegetables with this wine. And when we're talking about cheeses, I'm thinking, of course, your manchegos. I'm thinking, of course, about your Spanish cheeses. Go on the harder side, keep away from the soft cheeses for something like this. The harder cheeses tend to work a lot better with your red wines than they do with a softer cheese. Don't be afraid to give this wine air. Like I said, you do not need to decant it. I poured this into my glass and it immediately just gave me a nice big breath and was beautiful upon release, but don't be afraid to let it sit in your glass or sit in a decanter for 15 or 20 minutes. It's really going to help to open that up and bring out more of those savory things that I was talking about, all of those spices, all of that leather, all of that great savoriness. And fall in love with this wine. I think this is a wine that really gives you so much on the nose and on the palate. And as you're starting to maybe unravel your wine journey a little bit more, looking for things that you don't normally find in terms of aromatics and in terms of flavor profiles, this is a really fun wine to play with in the way that Syrah is fun to play with. You're going to find different things that you wouldn't normally necessarily be able to find in your typical Cabernets or your Zinfandels that are typically a little bit more just fruit centric, right? So look for all of those things I just talked about. Look for coffee. Look for a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't, I don't even think of, maybe that you find. It's probably there. This is the beauty of wine tasting, right? You can play, you can have a lot of fun. All right, that is the Zinio Bodegas Terroir de Zinio. And if you love this wine, well, let's keep watching and move it on to the next one. Cheers.